Hello, Pile One, and welcome to this reading on your safe passage down the road to love. Now, this is the second time I've done this reading. I want to talk a little bit about the spread, which, if you recognize it, hi, glad to have you here. It is a reference to a TV show. Yes, I got the spread from a TV show, but it's good. It's potent. I like it. Second, I want to point out how when I'm talking about the road to love, even before I've done this reading with this spread, and I call it the safe passage down the road to love. Before that, it was called the highway to love, or some. I think that's what it was called. It's been a couple of years since I've done it. The point is, to me, the road to love, the highway to love, the way to love has always been more about our traversal down or through life, and wanting to do so as informed by divine love as possible. And when I'm talking about divine love, I'm talking about not per se just romantic love, but all types of love. The stuff that basically makes life worth living. So, yes, self-love, but then also like genuine love, basically. The love that we can get. Like, think of the most genuine love you have received, and then that's what I'm talking about. So it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic love. In fact, it's never my intent for me to the road to love, like the destination and through the lens that I'm like shuffling the cards and kind of trying to get these readings is never going to be like the destination. It's going to be romantic union with someone. Sometimes that comes through. It has, which communicates to me that connection with that individual, that romantic connection, is one that can reflect divine love to you. So I'm just trying to point out, like, the road to love isn't the destination per se, doesn't have to necessarily be romantic union. If that's what you're seeking and you get a reading that's kind of pointing to something else, you can apply it to mean that the wisdom you're getting in that reading could eventually get you to the point of union, healthy union with that individual. But again, just trying to like point that out to not get your hopes up and then you're getting a message that you weren't basically here for. So, to get into it, we have, for those of us who are not familiar with the spread, each of these cards is answering a specific question or addressing a certain topic. We'll just kind of go through it as we're going through it. So the first card that we're going to look at is going to be the Hermit reversed, which is you, the traveler. How are you being described? How are you being recognized on the road to love? The Hermit reversed is indicating to me that you have seen enough, you have taken in enough information to have made a conclusion, and now you are ready to make a decision if you haven't already made a decision. About what? The rest of the cards reveal something about a connection or connections. So if it's a connection, it's like one individual. It doesn't necessarily have to be romantic. It could be a friend. It could be a specific family member. It doesn't, whatever, a single connection or a group of people. This could be a home, a family, a house, not a household, a workplace like group, a group of friends, whatever the case is. And so the Hermit reverse is basically saying you, and with the other cards, kind of painting this picture, rather, of you being a part of this group or this connection, you, at some point in the past, recognizing that there were things you were missing. You saw something and it's like, wait a minute, that's not right. And so you've taken this time to really pay attention. The Hermit upwards is a card of isolation, and you very well may have done that, where if it's a group of people, like maybe you started to like isolate a little bit because you haven't really been vibing with them lately for whatever reason. If it's a connection, like maybe you've just kind of like drawn your attention back a little bit or a lot, however it kind of applies. Now, if it's not that you have taken on some type of isolation, that's where I'm getting that interpretation of then you've been paying attention. You haven't consciously, or rather, you've taken a more conscious approach to your engagement with this connection, or your connection with this group, instead of just going into it like unconsciously and just kind of like vibing it. Kind of like when you're in a safe environment, in a safe space with safe people, you can relax. You don't have to like put on a show. You don't have to be so conscious about your actions or what you're going to say, because you know that you're in a safe space. So you're not so conscious. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing the Hermit as, where at some point you kind of realize you have to be conscious in these spaces. And so then reverse, it's like, okay, I've taken in enough information and I'm ready to re-engage with this connection or these connections according to the decision that I've made, according to the things I've observed. What's going to be the next card is going to be the top card, which is what's missing. The Six of Swords is, in essence, in a word, kind of it's liberation from something that we have concluded is not for us. Most of the time, in regards to a relationship, this is, safe passage out of something, but not just the passage itself. It's the ending part when we've gotten away. The thing that we're getting away from is securely in the past, and now we are moving away from it towards something else. So what's missing is you moving away. So that's kind of why I didn't prioritize that interpretation in the Hermit as like actual isolation, because the spread itself is saying what's missing is you actually removing yourself from this connection or this group. And if it is that you did go through some isolation, then it would mean what's missing is you leaving this behind at a more permanent state where you've said your goodbyes, it has concluded, you are moving on. The next card we're going to be talking about is the lower left card with the Queen of Cups reversed, pointing or addressing what was the path behind. So how were you engaging with all of this in the past? That's really shaped where you're at now. Well, the Queen of Cups reversed could mean one of two things, and you're going to have to regard it as it applies. On the one hand, the Queen of Cups reversed is talking about being overwhelmed by sadness, disappointment, anger. Something that isn't genuinely positive or generally positive. It's something that like weighs on us. It's something that we're not super comfortable in, but that there's so much of it that we have no choice but to sit in it, but to maybe even express it at some points. So this is when we are going through something so severe that it like permeates every second of our lives and we can't help but feel it. That's the Queen of Cups reversed. On the other hand, what the Queen of Cups reversed could be talking about is repression, and a repression that we are consciously and actively doing. So it's like sometimes we repress things and we're not even conscious of it because we've normalized the behavior, and so we're just like we're not even aware of the repression. The Queen of Cups reversed specifically is a card of conscious repression because the Queen is a master of emotion, and so reversed, it's like, yes, I know what my emotions are and I know the value of expressing them, but a recognition that in certain spaces you cannot allow yourself to be so emotive. Sometimes it's tactical. Sometimes it's not a bad thing. Sometimes, that some people will take advantage of the emotions you express. So you have to be unemotive. In other cases, because of the disappointment that you felt or because of the decisions that you've made about this connection or this group of people, you're not as happy or as comfortable to be around them. And so maybe that's what the Queen of Cups is talking about, where you've had to really show a poker face. You've really had to hide your true emotions, repress your true emotions, although you're aware of what they are. And maybe outside of spaces with this person or these people, you can be expressive. You recognize that in this space, in the spaces that these people or this person occupies, you do have to put a lid on it, basically. So, Queen of the path behind, one of repression, whether one of like we're consciously repressing it for whatever reason, or one where there was such an overwhelming amount of emotion that we had no choice but to feel it. To move into the path forward, which is the card right next to it, we have the Two of Wands reversed, and I love the way that it's depicted here because it shows a figure. The head is detached from the body, not in an obscene or weird way. It's just an artistic choice of like there's no neck, and the two wands are seemingly pushing on the person, like it's pushing them from like behind, and it's lifting the body off the ground and the head along with it. And I'm kind of getting from this like impulse where sometimes the way that we feel will like drive us to move in certain ways, kind of going off of what the Queen of Cups reverse was touching on, where sometimes there's such overwhelming emotion that we just have to like act on it, or like all of our actions reflect those emotions. On the other hand, another thing that I'm kind of getting from it is what I was saying earlier of when we're in a safe space, we can act unconsciously. We don't have to be so conscious about our decisions. Like the figure in the card, just be moved by, not by conscious thought, not by like emotion even, just out of impulse. It was just a comfortable thing. And so the path forward is to recognize how there isn't a space for you to do that. How actually, in order to keep yourself safe, or whatever the case is, you have to be careful. You can't just act freely. What this is kind of pointing to is it may be addressing a hesitation on your part on whether or not you want to leave this union. And so it's being pointed out to you, like, look at how restricted you are, how you can't be yourself, how you have to put away so much of yourself, leave at the door so much of yourself. That's the path forward. Like, when you prioritize the fact that you are restricted in this space, when you are honest with yourself about that, you'll recognize the path forward, which is away from this connection, because there's no space for you in them. The obstacle, which is the card on the left, is going to be the Ten of Cups reversed. The Ten of Cups outwards is one of a happy union, a happy connection. So this is what you regarded this union you have in the past. That's how you regarded it in the past, whether it's a group of people again or an individual. In the past, it was the Ten of Cups upwards. This was a union under which expectations you could abide under, a union you belonged in, honestly, in the past, before you saw what you saw, or maybe before you like developed yourself in a way that now you do see things differently. The point is, the obstacle is the disassembling of that union. So that's like the simplest interpretation of the Ten of Cups reversed, where it's like that union in the Ten of Cups upwards being then unmade, the reversal. Another thing that's coming through, though, is the tumultuousness, the difficulty, the discomfort. However it ranges, the degree is going to vary depending on your circumstance. But basically, it's going to be like the repercussions of that ending. Maybe you do recognize that this individual or these people, or maybe certain individuals within that group, aren't going to take your departure well. However that's kind of applying, whether it's going to be like they're going to be upset about it, maybe even angry about it, or they're just going to be like overwhelmingly sad. You know, best case scenario, it's like one of those cases where they're not going to hold you back, but they are going to be sad about it. And you're trying to avoid that. Worst case scenario is that these are people, or this is a person who is going to react in a way that you're scared of, react in a way that you know you have to be careful with. And maybe that's part of the hesitation here. The point is, the obstacle, it's letting you know, like, that's going to be an obstacle. The ending is going to be difficult. It's not going to be something that's going to be just like, okay, bye. Because the obstacle is being shown as a 10. It's like, it's going to be a process. It's not just a one and done. There's like steps to it. The windfall, though, is the Nine of Cups. And so I love that these two cards came up together with the obstacle and the windfall, because it's not too far off. It's just one card away. And in fact, the Nine of Cups is one of emotional wealth and abundance, of just joy, of just fulfillment, really. I like to talk about how, even especially with the traditional Rider-Waite image, there's so much yellow in the card that even when you flip the card over and the Nine of Cups is reversed, even then there is still joy to be had. So that the Nine of Cups is coming up as the windfall, and that it is only one cup short, basically, of the Ten of Cups, is, should you actually go through with this ending? Should you brave through whatever is going to come up, whatever the consequences of you walking away and putting an end to those things? Should you face that, you're going to find, one, relief. You're going to realize that, like, how much this union, this connection, this group was taking from you. Even if it's not like a super bad thing where it's just like, you had to depart this space, the space that is now, that you now have where that union kind of laid, you'll realize it's like, oh, like now I have space for this, or I didn't realize how much I actually enjoy my life. And I was like, because I was in that connection and what I was giving, like mentally, emotionally, what I like, all like how I was processing it, it was taking so much out of me that now that it's not in my life anymore, I'm like, good, it's good, things are good. You'll find that things are good once this union ends, basically. And that's again gonna apply to varying degrees. For some of you, it's like, of course it's gonna be like, maybe it's so bad that it's like, yeah, there's nothing but relief for me to be like, there's nothing but relief waiting for me once I end this, because this is so tumultuous. But for some of you, it might not be that extreme where you're kind of like, well, things are good here, it's not so bad, it's not the worst. You're being told, actually, like, it's sure, it might not be the worst, but you haven't yet experienced life without this in your life. So if it's family, then that's what's coming through. But if it's like an individual that you got into a relationship with, it's like you've been with them so long that like you've just gotten used to having them around, and it really is about it. Until you remove them from your life, you won't see what life is like without them, and you're being kind of guided to make that a possibility, where it's like, we're trying to show you that life would be better without this connection, without these individuals, without this person. And you'll get to see that if you actually end this. Obviously, we've been talking about reasons for why. So we're not going to get in, whatever. You're being told that you should be walking away from this. And if you do, what's the destination? The star, which is hope, which is vulnerability. It's really, the star is usually depicted traditionally as a completely naked individual who is at this really kind of vulnerable space out in nature, and they're just enjoying themselves in that space. And that's the destination. And the Nine of Cups, the star together, are kind of pointing to this fulfillment, this joy, this sense of like complete relief, if that applies. But actually no, across the board for all of you, there's relief waiting for you at the other side. And so if you're still struggling and you're kind of like, again, I don't know, like this feels safe, it's not that bad, you're being shown that things could be better, so much better. And if you follow through with what you've seen, you've seen what you've seen, you've made your conclusions. If you follow those conclusions to the next conclusions that they can kind of create, you'll arrive at a place where it's like, okay, things are a lot better, because I am now not expending resources, emotional, mental, energetic, time, money even. I'm not wasting resources on that. I can now apply that to myself, other endeavors, what have you. Yeah. My friend, I really hope that this helps, and I hope to catch you at another reading. Bye. Hello, Pile 2, and welcome to your reading on the Safe Passage Down the Road to Love. Now, before we begin, I want to talk a little bit about what the road to love is, which, because I just want to kind of point out that it is not per se the road to romantic union, so much as it's the road to a deeper understanding of love, access to that love if we feel that we don't have it. What am I talking about? Think to the deepest love you have ever felt, whether it was that you gave it to yourself, or a certain family member, or a very good friend, maybe even a romantic partner. The point is that type of love, the one that makes us feel held and seen and understood. And if you are of faith, if you are a spiritual individual, then you'll understand that there's also the love that we can feel being reflected back at us when we express it to that faith, what we have faith in. But okay, that being understood, each of these cards is going to answer a specific question or address a certain topic. If you recognize the spread, it is from a TV show. Yes, I got it from a TV show, but it's good as shit. I really like it, so I've been using it. But okay, to just get into it, and we'll kind of talk about what each spread is determining as we're going through it. We have the first card at the center left is going to be the Lovers reversed, which is you, the traveler. A recognition of who you are on the road and what you're kind of going through, per se. The Lovers reversed could be talking about the dissolving of a union, whether like a breakup that's happened or a breakup that you're kind of thinking about because you're recognizing either a core difference between you and this individual, or just that it isn't as compatible as you thought that it was, or maybe it was compatible but it no longer is. It could be that, but for everybody that's here, what it basically means is a recognition of the impact that the connections you have had and or have had on you as an individual, and the role that you've played in those connections, past and present. So, yeah. The fact that it's coming up reversed is kind of what I was saying, where if it is talking about a connection, then it's, again, kind of dissolving. But if we're applying it towards the self, more internally, more bigger picture, like that second option that I was talking about right now, the reversal kind of indicates a disassembling, an unraveling of these things to better understand them. We continue with the card up top, which answers the question of what's missing. The Page of Pentacles upwards is the beginning of new things. Our motivation to start new things, even if it might be an uncomfortable thing. What I'm really getting from this card is new beginnings. Your endeavor, like you starting new beginnings. So then it coming up reversed is stopping new beginnings, like understanding that right now isn't the time to start new connections, not while you're starting to understand deeper aspects of yourself and you're trying to understand why it is that you've moved in certain ways, what within those connections influenced your decisions within that connection, but then also what outside of that connection impacted you to move in the way that you did. And so as you're kind of like unraveling all of these things and like the way that you move in connections, it might be wise for you like to not start any new connections, particularly romantic ones, because it'll just be a way for you to continue those patterns and maybe reaffirm those things to you. And if you continue a habit, it's harder to break it, if it is that you're trying to break it. But since we're just talking about trying to understand that habit in the first place, or patterns of behavior, whatever it is, while we're trying to understand it, it might be best to not to put it in its sterile terms. It's like if you're conducting an experiment, it's best to just use the parameters and the factors that we accounted for in that experiment, and not bring in new things and new data into it while the experiment is going. Basically, take the time and the space to really give this unraveling and this understanding the time and space that it requires. And when you really give it its time and place, you'll kind of notice that there isn't a lot of time and space for other things. So this is really a period of time for you to prioritize yourself and a self-understanding and a self-development, rather than trying to develop something new with a new connection, basically. We move into the Knight of Wands reversed, talking about the path behind, what you're leaving behind. And so, okay, if we are talking about, or rather, where we're talking about past connections, you're looking at yourself, and your patterns of behavior, but you're also pay attention to. Okay, take this within the context of how it's applying, because if it's applying to a single connection that's kind of dissolving, the Knight of Wands as the path behind is kind of asking you to look at how this partner that things are unraveling with, how is this connection and you're choosing this partner, how was that impacted by your past partners? And particularly, what about those past partners, or if it just was one partner, what was it about that partner that really set in stone you choosing this person? And so if it's not about a single person and you're just looking at yourself and the connections that you've made, Look at that. Look at how your past connections influenced the ones that came after it, and kind of continue that pattern forward. Um, Beyond that, beyond it applying as your past partners, the Knight of Wands is also pointing to you, where, because we're all, the whole thing is about unraveling our role and our patterns of behavior. Um, you're also being asked the emphasis that the Knight of Wands is kind of asking you to place on when you're looking at the past and your role and in your connections is the ways in which you moved as a result of attraction. So this very clearly brings to mind, like, did you diminish yourself just so that you would have a better chance with that individual? And did you build something with those individuals and then notice that you had to continue to repress those parts of yourself or continue to morph yourself in order to keep that going? Or if not that, like maybe you did do that and then you found that it wasn't necessary. And so like paying attention to that, like how does attraction impact you? How does that influence you? And how do you handle it? Like, can you handle that high level of attraction and remain true to yourself and move in a way that reflects who you are, even if it means driving someone away? Why or why not? So, okay, to move into the path ahead, the Nine of Pentacles. So the Nine of Pentacles is a card of wealth. Now, nothing within the context of this reading is about pointing to money in any way. So since we're talking about behavior, and not only behavior, but understanding something, the Nine of Pentacles points to a wealth of knowledge. So that in and of itself is saying two things to me, where a wealth of knowledge could mean that you currently have a wealth of knowledge that you could take advantage to apply to this, and if not to apply to this, a wealth of knowledge in something that could, you need to invest yourself more in that thing that you have a lot of knowledge in right now, and maybe focusing on that for a little bit might help you to come back to this thing that you're unraveling with fresh eyes and help you to unravel that. Maybe you spent too much time here. Take that if it applies. If it's not about that, a wealth of knowledge is what's promised if you continue to unravel this. Taking your time to understand yourself in this pattern is really going to give you a lot of data for you to really understand yourself, and then you'll be able to apply that insight, that wisdom, that understanding to future connections, and then gain better results because you understand yourself much better and your patterns, and etc., etc. Another thing that might be coming through, take it if it applies, is if you're kind of in this state of stagnancy where, and this is especially true if you were talking about a connection that's unraveling and you haven't really moved into a phase where you haven't broken up with them, basically. What am I saying? If you're basically still kind of on the fence about breaking up with them and you really haven't ended it, or you're trying to figure out how to end it, move in a way that move you have abundance, whether that's true or not. If you do have abundance, in options, let's say, there are people out there, you can pull, right? Just point blank, you can pull, you have the charm, you have the looks, then move accordingly. It's not about fuck this person and I'm just gonna go get whoever I want. It's not that. It really, if that applies and that's the energy you need to get into, please, by all means. But that's not really what I'm getting, so much as it's I can't move in fear that this is the only thing that's available to me. I have to move I know there is more waiting for me out there. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Well, I just said it, didn't I? Beyond that, it's also well, no, that's basically what I want to say with that card. It's you need to move in a wealth mindset, not one of scarcity. And that might make things easier in making certain decisions and making certain moves as you need to. But okay, to get into the obstacle, which is basically pointing to why all of this is so difficult. The moon is, among very many things, the card of the subconscious, the parts of our mind, of our psyche that we have a hard time understanding. This can also point to certain things that we don't know quite yet. The whole energy that we've been talking about this whole reading of we're trying to unravel something, we're trying to figure it out, that's moon energy, point blank. Moving in the dark, when we're moving, when we go into a room that we're not super familiar with, and the lights are off, we're gonna take the time to like look for that light source or pull our phone out and use the flashlight, because we don't know this room and there's no light. So like, I don't want to bump into anything, so I'm gonna take something out so that I can see it. So that's that, like what we're talking about right now, where you don't fully know this room and it's dark, and so you're kind of like moving around slowly so you don't bump into anything with this little light, because you're not familiar with this room. But the more time that you spend there, even if like maybe let's just say there's no light source in this room, the more time that you spend there, like let's say over a year's time, you're gonna go into that room confidently without your flashlight, because you know your way around that room and you know where everything is and you don't need that flashlight. So the obstacle is basically pointing to like, you just don't know yet. Like these are things that you don't know, and that's why this is so difficult, because it's like you're learning it, you're figuring it out. You are engaging with something that you have no prior knowledge to. So it's that, it makes perfect sense that as you're learning it, it's going to feel confusing, because you just don't know. You just don't know it yet. Confusion is a natural symptom of not knowing something, of learning something. So take your time, give yourself grace, allow yourself to get it wrong, to just sit in the discomfort of not knowing something, and just allowing yourself the time and the space to like learn things. Understanding also that it's not just about sitting down, and like if I sit down and I sit here for 20 straight hours just sitting with it in my mind, I know I don't know. It's not about that, hun. Sometimes the passage of time has to like happen. Sometimes things haven't happened yet that will give us the necessary context for us to like unravel this. Like maybe that's just what's waiting. Like something needs to happen for you to like, oh shit, now I get it. And all of these things have been set into place for that thing to like come and basically pull it all together to make sense to you. The moon, it's just like, you just wait, just give yourself grace. It's okay that you don't get it. You are gonna get it. It's okay that you don't get it yet. But okay, that's your biggest obstacle, which I would say is a pretty neat one, because it's not like this big scary thing. It really is just, you don't get it yet, and that's okay. Give yourself grace and be patient with yourself, basically. The windfall being strength is a card that's basically stating a promise of self-mastery. Should you continue unraveling this and really wrap your head around it, really get this pattern down, and you get it, you not only do you get what you're trying to understand right now, but because you're engaging with this curiosity right now, as you continue to move in connections and learn more about yourself, and you gain more insight and more data to like chew on, you'll continue to engage with yourself in curiosity. And that's that self-mastery that I'm talking about here, where it's like, because you're engaging with yourself now in this curiosity, you're starting to learn how to do that, how to unravel yourself, how to understand things deeper. And that's also part of the process here, where it's not just about you wrapping yourself around, yourself and the patterns like this whole reading's been talking about. It's also about you getting comfortable with self-reflection and basically what we call shadow work. Like this is what that is, and you're learning. The moon, shadow work. Like yes. There's this wealth of learning and knowledge and like self-understanding and self-mastery that's waiting for you should you traverse through this effectively, and like not just effectively but successfully. There you go, that's what I was trying to say. Okay, now to get to the destination, we come to the Two of Pentacles. Now this might feel like an underwhelm, considering we have had like 3 majors so far and all of these wonderful great messages. The Two of Pentacles being the destination tells me that what right now, okay. Because the Two of Pentacles is basically like handling with ease what before felt difficult. Okay, so basically like right now you're kind of sitting in this confusion and you're moving slowly through this like things that you're trying to understand. In the future, when you are engaged, when you are when things like this are brought before you again, you're going to be like, oh, I did this already. I know exactly what this is. It doesn't scare me. I can make a decision effectively because I know these things about myself. I already chewed this over. I know exactly what to do. That's what the Two of Pentacles is saying. We start from the Travelers, the Lovers, which is, these two individuals, these two energies clashing together, now being brought to the destination down to a minor arcana, the Two of Pentacles. Just these two things that we can hold in our hand. These big concepts, now things that we can easily grasp and handle. Um, so I hope that made sense. I know that this one can be kind of heady. I know that if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, continue to chip at it because you will. My friend, I hope that this helped. I wish you Godspeed on all of your endeavors, and I hope to see you at another one of my readings. Bye. All right, hello, Pile 3, and welcome to this reading on your safe passage down the road to love. Now, before we begin, I want to talk a little bit about what the road to love is. It is not, per se, the road to romantic union. The road to love is gaining access to having an easier time connecting with the type of love that makes us feel safe and seen and understood. And although romantic union can be an avenue through which we experience these things, it's definitely not the only one. So just wanted to clarify that before we get into this reading. Next thing I want to talk about is the spread itself, which if you recognize by name, hi, nice to have you here. I am using a spread from a TV show. It's potent. I like it. I use it. But okay, that being said, each of these cards is answering a specific question or addressing a certain topic, and we'll kind of go over what those are as we go through the reading. So we begin with the Empress at the front and center. Well, not front and center, but center left, basically. Answering the question of, just pointing out you, the traveler, on the road to love. And as the Empress, which is a reflection of Venus, of love and abundance, and we're talking about the road to love, whenever this comes up in this reading, I use it as an understanding that you have a greater capacity for an understanding of love and the wisdom that comes from engaging in love and learning from it, the value of moving and abiding by love. You have a greater capacity for that than others do. So that's point blank what we're starting out with. How that pertains to the rest of the reading, well, that's pretty much what the reading is about, is how to really take advantage of that greater capacity that you have, basically. But to get into kind of specifics, where you're at right now, whether it's that you recognize it or not, like for some of you, you don't fully recognize it, and so you need to hear that you are actually an abundant person. Physical abundance we can recognize. So this is like a personal abundance. This is going to range differently, where you, for whatever reason that you feel undesirable, that is all in your head. That's what it kind of boils down to. Now, for those of you that doesn't apply, where you have a full recognition of yourself and your value and you're like confident in yourself, then that's what's being highlighted, that you know who you are comfortable in that, and you're moving through life as that, and you're kind of, part of that is holding that expectation and like the connections that you build and the connections that you have, where it's like, I know that this is what I'm doing and I'm making sure that I'm being taken care of too. Not that it's all about give or take, but that like you're okay with the balancing of energies between you and the other person and those connections that like you're engaging in. But okay, what's missing? The Two of Wands reversed is basically, in a phrase, saying what's missing is an understanding that you have more options than you think you do. It could be that at the moment you feel like the options that are laid out in front of you are not what you want, or it's things that you don't want to do, or you feel like you don't have any choice. And so you're kind of you're kind of trying to think outside the box. Or maybe you're not even at that stage yet where you're trying to look for different kind of alternatives for yourself. The point is, it is true that you do have more options, and it is about you learning how to recognize those. We kind of elaborate on that as we go on. That's basically what the reading is about, because the path behind being the star. It's interesting because usually this card is pointing to something that we need to kind of stop doing, or something we've outgrown or developed out of, basically. But the star is a really nice card because it's a card of hope, of vulnerability, the capacity to hold both. I mean, in order to hold hope is to be vulnerable. And so that's what the star is. It's this gentle, like having this gentleness with ourselves to hold not only ourselves but our expectations, the world around us, like with tenderness, basically, and with something besides the cynicism and the brutalism that it can take to be like a realist about things, which is necessary to kind of like successfully maneuver in this reality. So the star being the alternative to that, like the hope and vulnerability that can exist internally, and that if we're lucky, it can exist in the connections that we nurture. And that's what the star is saying here, is that it's asking you to pay attention to like your own capacity for vulnerability, the circumstances that it takes for you to be vulnerable with a person, what you've gained from being vulnerable. And if you feel like you haven't gained anything, what the star is saying, it goes in tandem with the Ten of Pentacles, because if we look at the imagery of the star, she's pouring out this vessel of what looks to be like stars, but they're like round and they have like shine, like these glimmers around them. And then the Ten of Pentacles, like, are golden spheres with stars within them. So I'm kind of seeing what, like, the stars that are being poured out of the vessel in the star card, I'm seeing those as the Ten of Pentacles that are within this chest in the Ten of Pentacles. And this imagery of things being planted onto the ground, poured from a vessel, and either you harvesting that and recognizing it, like recognizing its value, or someone else recognizing that vulnerability as a treasure, something to be treasured. So it kind of goes both ways, where you yourself have to recognize that vulnerability as a treasure and hold it as such, hold it as something that you need to preserve, hold it as something that is important, hold it as something that isn't a weakness but is actually your strength. Recognize its value, and if you do, then it's saying continue to do that, so that you can, so you'll know it's the right person because they hold this vulnerability to the same standard that you do. They recognize the value of your vulnerability like you do, and not just the value of your vulnerability, but the value of vulnerability in general, meaning they are going to be able to be vulnerable with you in a way that you recognize as equal. But okay, what is the obstacle? The obstacle being the Six of Swords reversed. One indicates to me that it's not going to be too much of a hurdle because it's a minor, and it's reversed, so it's something that you're ready to like traverse anyway. It's something that you're ready to like move past anyway. It's just that there's some lingering habitual like feeling to it where it's just you haven't yet learned how to operate differently, or if you have learned how to operate differently, you need more practice in doing it so that you're more comfortable in doing it that way rather than the ways that you've done it in the past. And that's basically what the Six of Swords is saying. I started off with just what the reversal by itself meant, but and the minor, sorry, with the fact that it was a minor left, but I kind of got into what the Six of Swords specifically is saying, which the Six of Swords upwards is a smooth transition out of something, but the reversal indicates it's not as smooth. The transition out is still happening, but there are obstacles. There are things that make it tumultuous and make it kind of difficult. And so it's not like because you are being expressed by the Empress, and like we're talking about this huge hope, that it's huge capacity for hope and vulnerability that you have, and etc., etc. The Six of Swords the Six of Swords reversed in the face of all of these things that I just talked about. It feels like something like it's just about you moving past your comfort zone. It's just about you engaging with these new ways of interacting with connections with yourself, and then just getting comfortable there and recognizing, taking that as the new perspective. Because that new perspective is like getting ahead of myself. But okay, let's get into the windfall, which is the Eight of Cups. Now, I love that the Eight of Cups is coming up after the Six of Swords, because both are cards of transition, both are cards of leaving something behind. It's just that the Six of Swords upwards is a recognition that what we're leaving behind is something difficult, is something that we really have no place in, we have no space in it. So it's a little bit easier to leave it because we recognize there's no space for us there. The Eight of Cups is talking about leaving things even when they're good enough. Leaving things even though everything seems perfect, but you know that there's just one thing off, or it's not deep down, you know that there's more, or it's just not what's right for you. And you can just, out of faith, because you know that there's more out there for you, there's just this deep connection with the self and a deep commitment to the self that you're like, no, like, this is good, this is great, but I want more. I want something else. And so you can leave those spaces where before you might have stayed, just started like, no, it's good enough. It's okay. As you're traversing through like a genuine, you're traversing to a greater understanding and a greater grasp of your vulnerability and what it means to be vulnerable and the strength in that. As you like develop that part of yourself, it'll make it easier in the future for you to just abide by your own desires and by your own wants, and that's it. It doesn't have to be more than I just want it. I just want more. You aren't of the scarcity mindset of like, well, this is enough and I might not get something better if I leave it. It's like, no, like, I'm okay with going out and looking for more because I have myself, and I that's enough. Me by myself is enough, and that I want more, and I know that like just me wanting it and me like looking for it, I know I'm gonna find it. It's just like moving in faith, and how having that faith and the confidence that faith can provide us, how much easier it makes it for us to move where it is that we want to, even if there's nothing wrong, there's nothing bad about the places that we're leaving. It's just, well, now I want to go and do this. That's the windfall. Like, if you successfully maneuver through this and really gain a grasp over it, it'll just make traversing through things easier, and abiding by your own desires and by your own convictions, like, it'll make that easier in the long run. And so the destination is this change of perspective, where now we can see things. We have like a greater, like our scope has been widened. Our understanding of things have expanded, because we're moving from what's missing, the Two of Wands reversed, into the destination, the Three of Wands. So it's like, it's expanded. Like, we now know more. We have gained further insight, further wisdom that we can now apply into our future endeavors. So engage with your vulnerability and its value, and understand that that's not something that's not a burden to carry, but a strength, a gift to nurture and to hone and protect and to hold it to the esteem that it merits, and then use that, the way that you can hold it, the way that like you value it, use that as criteria for what and who you accept within yourself in that vulnerability. And in doing so, that really allowing you to see that what seems possible right now isn't all that's possible. Like, okay, let's say we're talking about maybe right now you're thinking about what's possible for you in love. Like, let's just leave it, like, make it simple, leave it to like romantic entanglements, for lack of a better term. And maybe like it's just like one person, and so it's the option of, you know, am I better off by myself, or should I engage with this situationship even though it's like not exactly what I want, or maybe they just don't give me enough. Whatever the case is, it's like, you're like, am I better off, or is this something that I should invest more time in, like see how it pans out? And so you're being asked to be engaged with that vulnerability that you have within yourself, where it's like, okay, well, if I'm being honest with myself, I actually do want something consistent. That's you being, like, this is my example of you being vulnerable with yourself. Like, I do want someone to be more consistent. I have like this criteria of X, Y, and Z, because I know that like I can do that. But also like maybe like someone in the past has already given you that, or like, you know that that's possible because you've seen it. So it's like, that's that vulnerability and honesty of like, okay, this is what I want. And when you're being honest with yourself, then you can recognize, yeah, this isn't, or these people, if it's more than one connection and you're like kind of having options, it's like, this isn't what I want. Like it's good, it's good enough, it's good on paper. There's nothing really too crazy about it, but it's just not what I want, and it's okay for me to move away and engage with like the unknown, and like maybe engage with the fear, that anxiety of like, oh well, maybe I won't get anything better. Well, first of all, like that's not true. There's the world is huge. There are so many people. There's always going to be new connections to build. It's just not true that you won't connect with another person again. But okay, let's say that that's true. Let's say it is true that you won't connect with another person again. Would that be such a horrible thing? And I'm talking romantically here. Like, would that be such a horrible thing? Like, are there not other avenues through which you can engage and not only give genuine love, but receive it too? One, and two, like you yourself, like we're talking about you having this gold, this treasure, these gifts. Why isn't that enough for you? Like, and sit with that. And so like as you're engaging with this, it expands your wisdom, it expands your scope of vision and understanding, and that's kind of what you're being asked to engage with here, so that you're not moving through this space of scarcity, but through a space that you understand, I'm gonna be okay, and if I want more, I'm gonna go and get more because I know that it's possible. So basically, in essence, moving from a scarcity mindset into one of abundance. My friend, I really hope that this helped. I wish you Godspeed on all of your endeavors and on your road to love. And I really hope to catch you at another one of my readings. Bye.